Yay! Okay, so this past year, there's been so much talk around the new normal and how we all have to just get used to things being a new, not so pleasant reality. And so I was thinking about, how do you create your new normal? How do you get to still achieve your dreams and make that your norm, as opposed to always having to adjust to, the new normal that's being imposed on us by, all these different kinds of restrictions. And so obviously right now I'm not talking about going against restrictions and living in your own world where, everything is fine and there's no pandemic or anything like that. That's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is when you are up leveling your life in some shape or form. So when you're trying to get a new reality, a new career, you're wanting to play a different role in society, in your work. You wanna double your pay. You want to get a promotion. You want to do an industry change where, yesterday you were working in one area, maybe like Laura, she was doing freelance production design 1 year, and then the next year she changed to being a project manager in corporate. I'm trying to think of more examples. Or you have, trying to think who else. You have Sarah, who was one day working in one company, and then the next day she had this super exciting job offer from another company who hunted her down, and that brought so many different exciting opportunities her way. So how do you make that kind of thing your new normal, like the new normal in a good way, as opposed to the new normal of just the things you need to make do with? And I think in this kind of climate, less and less people feel like they're allowed to control their own normal. But actually, the thing about what is normal is that if you want to make a kind of a quantum leap in your life, you want to create a whole new reality where you are in the position that you want to be in, doing the work that you want to do, waking up every day and feeling excited about that, and working with the kind of people you want to work with. For some of you, that means also moving cities and starting a whole new life elsewhere. Any of these things that involve a big life change, that's going to mean creating a new normal. And the problem with this is that so many people actually sabotage themselves, because new normals mean new anchors. And so we all have anchors in our lives, and I think this past year, the anchors have been really threatened, whether it's that we've lost someone close to us, and whether that person was lost, unfortunately, due to them passing away, or whether those people were lost because of changes in just relationships. So many relationships changed this past year. I know a lot of people have said, you find out who your real friends are during a pandemic, that kind of thing. So relationship shifts, that changes. Maybe there are some people you used to talk to and those were important anchors for you, and now you don't really talk so much, and so you've lost that anchor, right? And all those things can be really difficult. They're difficult really to deal with. Like it's difficult change, and when a change affects your core anchors, those are the changes that are the most difficult to deal with, because as humans we all need these anchors, right? Whether it's certain people, whether it's having a home to come home to, right? That's an anchor. And one thing I see a lot of is that when it comes time to change, even if it's a change you've wanted for a really long time, I see a lot of people start to self-sabotage because they're afraid of losing that anchor. And so this happens with people's jobs as well, because a job is a major, major anchor. So even if you'd be way, way happier in a different, much better position, I see this all the time with my clients. Like, they jump in, they say, I really, really want this amazing job, and this is what I want, and they get to work, and they're doing amazing, and then they actually get that job, and all of a sudden, I'm not sure, and what about this, what about that? Actually, I'm pretty happy where I am right now, and all these things, because they're starting to recognize that they're going to have to give up something that was an anchor for them before, even if sometimes the anchors are actually toxic anchors. It's really something that they should get out of. Sometimes they're not toxic at all. You just have to let them go to prepare for that next thing. However, the issue is the in-between. So when you're in between anchors, that's really difficult. I know a lot of you guys are probably thinking, well, if I have that new, better anchor, why would I hang on to the old one? I can just jump to the new one. I think number one, it's not easy to let go of that old anchor. So even if you have that new shiny anchor, that new much better job dangling here in front of you, it's not so easy actually to make the leap from one to the one to the other. I mean, hopefully. And this is something I have to help my clients with quite often, actually, the whole making them realize, hey, this is what you really wanted. Your life is going to be way better. You need to do this. Oh, yeah. And then they kind of have sense spoken to them and they're like, oh, yeah, you're right. Oh, my God, I almost let go of this amazing job because I was too scared to leave my old one. But there's often a transition period between those two things. This is the limbo zone. This is where you're working at that new anchor. And in this period, you need to trust that there is a better anchor out there for you. Otherwise, what happens is you cling so much onto that old anchor, you're not ready to live a little bit without any anchors until you reach that next point. And I think this is something that so many people have gone through last year, whether it's like I would say this even applies beyond the career space, even with relationships, even with their relationship with themselves sometimes. Sometimes geography, where some people have had to leave maybe where they were living before. They're looking for the new place they're going to live and they don't know where it's going to be yet. And meanwhile, they just feel like they're in limbo, right? And so with all these changes going on, I think this is something we need to get more comfortable with, this recognition that you're allowed to create your own anchors. And so you don't need to keep the same anchors that you were born with. Maybe they served you for a time, but maybe in the future there's new better anchors out there that would serve you better. So maybe there were certain people that you always went to for advice. I know people who their parents are the first people since they were very, very young who they would run everything past their parents. They always ask their parents advice. But now where they are in their careers, and maybe they're in a career that is just, it's something that their parents never had to deal with in their careers, and so they can no longer go to their parents for advice. They need to find a new sort of advice anchor. They need to find new people they respect that really know something about this sector to ask advice. But there are so many examples of this, and I just think it's so important to get comfortable living in that state of uncertainty, which has been such a big theme for this past year, right? How do you live comfortably with uncertainty? And I think it's just a human thing that we really don't like uncertainty. And the more we can recognize that, oh, the reason I'm so uncomfortable with this is because I'm human, and humans want to feel safe, and we want to know that everything, we have our shelter, and we have everything kind of taken care of. We know what to expect, and just recognize it's just kind of our human side that requires that certainty, but that the more we can get comfortable with feeling the uncertainty and still stay focused on what it is that you want versus just getting that anchor as soon as possible, the better. And of course, you can always create some supplementary anchors to tide you over meanwhile, because we just need them. So these are things like as you're working towards that new anchor, recognizing that, okay, I'm not where I want to be yet. I haven't created that new anchor yet. I'm still figuring out my life purpose, or I'm still working on getting that new job that's going to be a big anchor for me. But as you're working on that, make sure that you have other anchors in place. And sometimes times get really, really dire and you lose all your anchors. So you need to kind of create substitute anchors pretty quickly, which is fine. As long as you're just self-aware and you recognize them for what they are, right? You go, okay, this is not a long-term anchor, but it's okay for right now. This is serving me as my anchor for the time being. And you don't lose sight of the anchor you're building. Because I think that's how a lot of people also sabotage themselves. I see people clinging on to what they have now just because they need an anchor. And that's not what you want to do. You want to stay focused on that new anchor that you want to be creating. So I hope I just spoke some kind of sense. I hope that this was not completely nonsensical, but if it was nonsensical, let me know. I'll try to do better next time. And otherwise, hope it helps someone. And I'd love to know your thoughts on, especially from everything that's gone on this past year, how have any of the anchors in your life changed? And if so, how have they changed? I'd really love to know, what have your reflections been? Because I think this past year was such a great learning for so many people on how it is that we're living our lives and the challenges and how to get over those challenges. So would love to know what you think about anchors in your own life and what you've learned. And I'll see you guys on the next video.